Mike, check 1 2 1 2. It is the Y2K collector, and as many of you already know, the Xbox 360 store is going to be shutting down this summer. Now, before I talk about the 3 mistakes that people make when caught in the phase of FOMO, I want to just share a few high-level details about the store's closing. The first is that if you do have any games, or if you've purchased any games or purchased any DLC, and you already have those on your Xbox 360, those are not going to be affected by the store shutting down. So that's something that you don't have to worry about. Now, I'm not sure how that will work if the Xbox that you have those games downloaded to, like if it breaks down or if it suffers from the red ring of death. I'm not sure if you'll still be able to download what you've already purchased. I haven't dug that deep, but I do know that with the stores closing, anything that you do have will not be affected. The second thing is that a lot of the games and a lot of the titles that people are losing their minds over, you'll still be able to purchase those games on some of the newer Xbox models. So like the Xbox One or the Xbox Series S, you'll still be able to take advantage of a lot of those games on those platforms. Now, keep in mind that not all the games are going to be available on modern platforms. And the games that are lost are gone for good. So I would definitely take a moment to do an inventory of anything that you purchased online or anything that you're interested in purchasing, because now would be a good time to do it. Now, the other thing is, I think that their indie store, like for the store that has all of their indie games, I think that that's already gone, but you can play any purchased indie games online. And last but not least, my recommendation would just be on the lookout, and this is only if you're already a heavy Xbox 360 collector, or if this is a console that you're already heavily into, you definitely want to keep an eye out for anything that's been delisted. Now, I do want to talk real quick about the 3 common mistakes that people make due to FOMO. And I think we saw this happen with a few systems. We saw this happen with a lot of the Nintendo stores that were closed down recently. I think we saw some of this happen when PlayStation shut down some of their stores. So folks tend to run into a place where I think they hit FOMO, and there's 3 mistakes that they make. The first mistake that they make, and I'm just going to be going through some of the 360 games that I have in my collection here, because I'm also doing a review. So while I review my collection, I figured I'd share this with you as well. So one of the first mistakes that people make when caught in the phase of FOMO is they buy games that they ordinarily would not care about. Just because in their mind, they feel like it's not going to be there anymore, and maybe they think they're going to play it, or maybe they think it's going to go up in value. And so they wind up buying a bunch of games that they do not care about. My recommendation is, if you're on the fence about a game and the main reason that you're buying it is just because you feel like you're going to miss out if you buy it now, I would say take time, do some research, see if that game is available on another platform, if it's not something that you think you're going to play right away. And I would say, kind of move along and move forward with whatever your normal collecting habits are. Do not cause the shutting down of a store, or do not let the shutting down of a store cause you, rather, to just buy games that you're not going to play, or buy games that you're not ordinarily interested in. It just doesn't make sense, and I would just save yourself the headache and save yourself the hassle. The second thing that, or the second mistake that FOMO causes is it causes people to get tunnel vision, right? You may have been on the collecting path, maybe collecting for PS3, or maybe you were collecting for the Sega Genesis, or maybe you were collecting for the NES. And now all of a sudden you hear that the Xbox 360 store is shutting down, and you completely abandon the progress that you're making, or you completely abandon, everything that you're doing to collect for maybe a console that you were collecting for prior to the store shutting down. And you miss out on opportunities. You miss out on good deals because you're no longer searching, you're no longer hunting for certain systems. And you kind of just divert all of your attention away from what you were doing before, and now it's all put on the 360, and you could potentially miss out on deals for games that probably mean more to you in the long run. And so I would caution you, yes, the Xbox 360 store is shutting down in a few months, but do not cause it to give you tunnel vision and now you completely abandon all of your other collecting habits and decide, okay, now I'm just going to go in and just, forget about everything else and just only look at Xbox 360. A big, and I'm just going to just sidebar here. There are still a ton of Xbox 360 games available when you go to places like GameStop. A lot of these games are very readily available when you go to most of your video game stores. I don't think most mom and pop game stores have caught on to the idea yet. And so a lot of the games that we think might be incredibly expensive, you may still be able to get on the cheap at local game stores. So don't get that tunnel vision. Make Xbox 360 games kind of like a side quest in your collecting journey, especially if you're already collecting for other systems, or especially if you don't even own an Xbox 360 to begin with. Don't just start buying Xbox 360 games and get that tunnel vision because you heard about the store shutting down. The last mistake that I think a lot of people make when they get caught up in the FOMO, or when they caught up in the 360 FOMO, is I think a lot of people are going to find themselves overpaying for games. There are going to be games that are not worth as much as folks think they are. But like everything else, whenever certain pieces of news come out, there's euphoria, there's the FOMO, and now you find yourself overpaying for a game that you can find at GameStop for $10 or for $15. Be patient, right? Be patient. Xbox 360 games are not selling out anytime soon. There's no shortage of Xbox 360 games unless it's an extremely rare game, and at that point it's probably expensive already. But do not allow FOMO to cause you to overpay for games. It's a mistake that I've made in the past with other systems and other consoles. And I look back and I see some of the games that maybe I paid 15 to 20% more than the game is actually worth, thinking that in a couple months the price is going to shoot up. And the price goes nowhere, right? The price stays the same because at the end of the day, there was never any, authentic, right? There's no organic demand for a game. If there's no organic demand for a game, meaning if it's not a game that people just generally want to play outside of any extenuating circumstances like a store closing or anything like that, odds are that game is not going to shoot up in value anytime soon. And you're going to wind up being in a spot where maybe that extra 10, 15, 20 bucks that you paid on an Xbox 360 game that you're not going to play anyway could have gone to a game that you actually want and a game that you would actually wind up enjoying in your collection. Now, I do have a small Xbox 360 collection because I've never really felt super connected to the 360. I did have a 360 growing up, but a lot of the 360 games that I played were games that I played in group settings. They were great for when you're hanging out with your friends and playing games with your friends. And I'm more of in a solo gameplay mode in at this phase of my life. A lot of the games that I buy and play are games that are really meant for one player. They're kind of solo action adventure games. They're not really games that I'm going to be looking to call my friends up and say, hey, you guys want to get in a few rounds playing this game? That's just not where I'm at. So for that reason, I don't typically buy a lot of Xbox 360 games, but I am happy with the small collection of games that I do have. And I think I'm going to stay on the train that I'm on when it comes to the 360. If I happen to see a game while I'm out in the wild that I'm like, this game looks interesting, I've never heard of it before, this looks like one that I may want to add into my collection, then I may go ahead and just add the game into my collection because it looks cool, it looks unique, and it fits the mold of games that I typically like to buy and I typically like to play. The last thing that I'm going to leave you with is definitely keep an eye out for games that have been delisted or you think might be delisted, because those games definitely tend to shoot up in price. And if it's a game you think you'll want to play and you don't want to pay the crazy price for it, then it may be something that you may want to act on sooner than later just to avoid getting destroyed in your pockets when you try to go and get the game later on. So delisting is a real thing. In fact, when I was at GameStop this past weekend, I was asking the person, and I actually wound up getting a GameStop employee who is knowledgeable, super cool, very informative. And whenever I meet GameStop employees like that, I usually just try to chop it up with them and ask them questions. And I started asking them why certain Transformers games or like The Amazing Spider-Man 2, why they were so expensive on the PlayStation 4. And they let me know that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has been delisted from the PlayStation from PlayStation. The same thing with Transformers: The Dark Spark. Same thing with games like Attack on Titan, and any game that you see for PS4, Xbox, or even Xbox 360, or even PS3. When GameStop keeps them at the high $40, $50 price range, it's usually because the game has been delisted and GameStop knows it, so they're going to make you pay that premium. So definitely just be mindful of that as you're going about building or adding to your Xbox 360 collection. Like I said, a lot of these games are available on other platforms and on other consoles, so do not break the bank trying to jump on the 360 train. Be patient, wait it out, do your research, see what it is you actually really like and want to play, and then when you're ready, pull the trigger. It's the Y2K Collector with this early morning PSA. Hope you're having a good weekend, or good week rather. Take it easy.